Hello, my name is Shawn Cochran, and I am giving my video for SOC 352. First off, we talked about was our government, current government, um the new regime talking about closing our borders and with a conflict perspective, um, which brought in the idea that closing the borders would be keeping people out and keeping people in, but in fact people had already been in, and it was kind of segregating, keeping families apart from other countries and not keeping families together. And um, so the idea in general was to keep the United States together, but our country is a melting pot of all different areas. So the idea of using this conflict perspective is just going in there and making changes right away really gave a division of people within the United States. Um, it also, there was an idea of keeping business local and not being able to do any work outside of the United States, which ended up backfiring because it was more costly. Oh, there's my boy. You gotta stay down. Then the next one we had talked about was the sit behind me was coming up with a um, professional. You're talking about our own professional network and talking about using your own network as an example to talk about. So my own business was a professional network, was I'm a sign salesman working and to businesses and building and implementing the sales process, and also building the signs and installing them. So I so we started with I had a mix of similar and dissimilar actors that we worked with. So the similar actors were fellow salespeople that I worked with. They were the inside, uh, the management folks that were within the company that I dealt with, and upper management, and the salespeople. They were the more similar actors. They were able to adapt to change and understand others' views when we're dealing with other companies and businesses. They were able to kind of relate better to the outside folks. And they were also able to work with the office clients and with our vendors, who we were talking about different things happening within our company and new different kinds of technology that was coming along. We were more able to adapt to change and work with them. And so the mix was the dissimilar actors would be the more of the front office help that were within people come in, and also the outside installation crews. They were more kept together. They better related to each other. And they were really great working with each other, and the front desk people out the back door kind of working with their schedules and their hours and things like that. They really worked together. But the reason they were dissimilar actors were that, like I say, they related better to each other. They were more comfortable in their own group, and there really wasn't much crossover. There wasn't much crossover to the salespeople. We could talk about just about business things, but not necessarily outside interests. Um, so, so the next task was another one talking about. I went back to the political landscape of our country based on the two political parties. The current administration was trying to invoke change through a revolutionary movement, meaning they're attempting to overhaul the previous administration, and they're trying to accomplish this through a conservative platform. And their idea that they needed to return to a previously great time where fellow Republicans, they had a more base where they had an idea that things were great back in a time when the economy was good and people were doing more things at home. And so they kind of returned to that idea, and they're attempting to grow the economy. Though they were talking about past in the 80s with Reagan and times when the economy was very high, when the government was working well and everything was accomplishing. Everybody was making money, and taxes were high, but people were making money. So so they, so they're attempting to grow the economy and and then one of the ideas, which I talked about previously, was they tried to keep business local. The idea is keep business local, keep the money rolling in, keep money here, keep everyone going. But by doing that, and that goes back to the idea of closing your borders and they weren't allowing businesses to purchase their goods from outside the United States. So there's taxes. They tried to put some big taxes, liens on people trying to do business outside of the United States with the idea of keeping business here. But in actuality, what they did was they taxed out these local businesses, and for them to get their individual products put together by parts and pieces and things, they ended up in the end costing our local people, the consumers, more money because goods were costing more to build. So in the end, it really didn't work because they were trying to do this, keeping everything local, but in turn, it ended up costing more. The idea of Trump had of making America great again is this kind of basic idea of keeping things local, keeping things, make it great like it was in the 80s when Reagan was here. But the idea of doing that, of spend less and keep individuals here, the idea of making America great again is good, but how you get there is where the problem lies. The Trump administration wanted to, they spent less time on social services. They didn't want to put a lot of money out to people they thought as people who weren't helping themselves. They are, so they want to cut these services where people most in need needed them. They needed the help. So what this was a good idea of a status strain theory, where they invokes change in immigration and spending limitations and less spending on social services, but in turn, it ended up not working because you're not getting people taken care of, and the general public ends up not as well off. And then the next one, there were other tax. There was talking about worthwhile cause or something that people could stand up for, so what strategy would have made a social change? So the idea I came up with worthwhile change was our youth today would stand up, would be something basic as recycling. It's the idea of recycling that sounds great. Hey, everybody should recycle, but what are the steps needed to invoke change for people to actually? Why do we need to recycle? Well, our oceans are full of plastics. They're floating around. Our landfills are getting full of of garbage and things that could be recycled and reused. So the idea of this would be the re-educative strategies. So it would be to re-educate the older public or the younger, but start with the younger folks, teaching their parents that are more set in their ways. Teach them the importance of recycling. Why do you need to do it? What are the problems in our oceans exactly? What are the landfill problems? And what are the steps that they could take on a individual basis as far as dividing up their daily garbage and putting it in the right recycle bins and really doing the research on what goes where and why. And by taking those little steps, the more people who do that, the more we can be ahead of this problem and try to recycle these goods instead of just throwing them away and have them floating in our oceans and filling these landfills. So by re-educating as a strategy that really would help educate these people, that would, you could realize that, recycling is not that hard and it is something that can really help. So that, like I say, going through a re-educative strategy is really an important way to help the generations come together and really invoke change. Then one of the last ones was trying to get my ideas together. Sorry. The idea was to come up with an idea for a target, kind of come up with a change agent, an idea for our youth to be able to change. Hey, buddy. So an idea, I thought it was the idea of bullying was another idea where where it's online bullying. It's not necessarily the old time thought of beating a kid up, bullying them, stealing their lunch money, although that may still happen. But it's the idea of including people, and different people from different backgrounds, kind of learning about them. Your change agent would be today's youth, and in a smaller sense, is maybe a high school or a community, where individuals can include others. Really look out of your way to include somebody else, or learn something about somebody's background or their interests, and show and really understand where they're coming from, because there's a lot of people, different people from different areas coming together in different socioeconomic backgrounds, religions, races, just different communities all coming together. And the more open we are to helping these people understand each other, the more people are going to get along, and they're going to be more inclusive. So my idea of anti-bullying would be to include people and not to exclude them. So it's like an overall attitude of including people and not being inclusive, and just to show respect, and to accept differences and embrace differences. Um, the target audience, like I say, would be the whole student body. It would be kids from different interests and backgrounds. Um, this is another sense of students that are accepted, the re-education strategy. They can inform students about others, and and their families, and people in the community, about how everybody's the same and everybody deserves a chance, and stay away from the stereotypes. And overall, the kids can be, we can learn most from kids. Kids are more open, but what they don't learn is from what they've been told from growing up, and from their elders, or for people in the community, and just that stereotype. So the anti-bullying would be, taking steps to inform kids, to encourage them to include everybody in different activities, and define differences and find similarities. So overall, I think it's just inclusion with kids, each other, and starting at the very young levels, working way up. So that starts in preschool. That starts in elementary school. Schools have the friend bench, where people can sit and look for someone to hang out. All those little things to help people include and come together as they grow, and will help the idea of bullying. So it's not as much bullying; it's more inclusive. If you include people and you understand people and you re-educate yourself on how to treat people, then it's going to help everyone be happier and treat everybody better.